As soldiers, your mission is to protect your country and its people. However, in the chaos of conflict, upholding human rights can be a daunting challenge, especially when the enemy blends seamlessly with innocent civilians. How do you navigate the fine line between fulfilling your duty and ensuring the safety and dignity of all? What happens when mistakes are made and accusations arise? This is where a deep understanding of human rights becomes your most powerful weapon. Human rights, a balancing act in military operations, the silent problem in a silent war. In the heat of military operations, soldiers can sometimes find themselves accused of human rights violations. This can be a confusing and frustrating experience, especially if the soldiers aren't sure whether their actions were justified or not. A lack of clear understanding about human rights can lead to misunderstandings and even legal charges. The dilemma: protecting civilians and fulfilling the mission. Imagine you're a soldier in the middle of a conflict zone. Your duty is to protect your country and complete your mission, but you also have a responsibility to protect innocent civilians. This can be a difficult balancing act, especially when the enemy is hiding among the civilian population. Misconceptions and mistaken identities. One of the challenges soldiers face is distinguishing between civilians and combatants. This is especially difficult when the enemy uses guerrilla tactics, blending in with the local population. Unfortunately, this can lead to tragic situations where civilians are mistakenly caught in the crossfire. When this happens, it's easy for misunderstandings and accusations to arise. Understanding human rights and their protectors. Both soldiers and civilians sometimes have misconceptions about human rights. It's important to understand that the Commission on Human Rights is an independent government body that investigates human rights violations. It does not have the power to prosecute, but it can recommend charges to the courts. Throughout history, there have been many instances of human rights violations in times of war. For example, during World War II, the Japanese military committed numerous atrocities against civilians in occupied territories. These violations included forced labor, torture, and mass executions. In recent Philippine military history, the Battle of Marawi 2017 highlights the importance of respecting human rights even in the midst of a fierce conflict. The armed forces of the Philippines (AFP) faced the challenge of fighting a well-armed and determined enemy while also protecting the civilian population. The AFP took measures to minimize civilian casualties and ensure that human rights were respected as much as possible. As future soldiers, it's crucial to understand and respect human rights. This means not only following the rules of engagement, but also actively seeking to protect civilians. Remember, the military's mission is not only to win battles, but also to win hearts and minds. By upholding human rights, you contribute to the overall success of the mission and the long-term stability of your country. Common misconceptions about human rights in the military. Misconception 1. An HR case means the end of your career. Being investigated by the Commission on Human Rights doesn't automatically mean you'll be charged and prosecuted. The CHR is a fact-finding body, not a court. The decision to prosecute rests with the judiciary or relevant agencies. Think of it like a detective investigating a crime. They gather evidence, but don't decide on guilt or innocence. Misconception 2. Enemy forces are always the victims. Human rights apply to everyone, regardless of which side they're on. In the Philippines, insurgents are also subject to human rights investigations, but this can be difficult due to their lack of fixed addresses. Understanding human rights activists. Historically, there has been tension between the military and human rights activists. It's important to remember that many human rights groups have played a crucial role in promoting human rights in the Philippines. However, some groups may overstep their bounds and unfairly target the military. This can create a hostile environment where soldiers feel constantly scrutinized and misunderstood. Regional and local human rights groups. Human rights groups operate not only at the national level, but also regionally and locally. The presence of these groups means that military actions are closely monitored, which encourages soldiers to act responsibly and within the bounds of human rights. Remember, respecting human rights is not only a legal obligation, but also a moral imperative. As soldiers, you have a duty to protect civilians and uphold their rights, even in the midst of conflict. By understanding the role of human rights activists and working towards mutual respect, we can create a safer and more just society for everyone. The soldier, misconceptions and reality. Each soldier is an individual with unique experiences, family, and beliefs. Yet, they are united by a common oath to protect their country. This means that the actions of one soldier can affect the reputation of the entire military. Soldiers are always on call, ready to serve in peace, crisis, or war. In combat, their goal is to survive and win the battle, which can sometimes lead to unintentional civilian casualties. Unfortunately, the enemy often exploits these incidents for propaganda, portraying themselves as victims and the military as aggressors. It's important to remember that soldiers are human beings, not war machines. They make sacrifices to protect others and often face unfair accusations. In the past, legal deterrence was the primary way to prevent human rights violations. Today, character development plays a significant role. The public's perception of the military can be influenced by biased information, especially in urban areas where people have limited interaction with soldiers. This can give the enemy advantage in the propaganda war, allowing them to avoid accountability for their own violent actions. The enemy may realize that outright victory on the battlefield is unlikely, so they focus on gaining concessions through negotiation. However, their tactics of misinformation and manipulation only prolong the conflict and harm innocent civilians. In conclusion, soldiers are dedicated individuals who risk their lives to protect others. They are not instruments of violence, but human beings with families, beliefs, and a deep commitment to their country. It is essential to recognize their sacrifices and understand the challenges they face in fulfilling their duty. International enforcement of human rights. In an increasingly interconnected world, human rights violations no longer remain isolated incidents. They draw global attention and demand international action. However, enforcing these rights can be a complex process, especially when governments themselves are often the perpetrators. Methods of enforcement. Various methods are employed by the international community to uphold human rights standards worldwide. Leading by example, every nation understands that its own human rights record sets a precedent for others. Diplomacy. Private discussions between representatives of different countries often address human rights concerns. Providing asylum. Many countries offer political asylum to individuals fleeing persecution in their homelands. World opinion. When diplomacy fails, governments may publicly denounce a country's human rights record, applying political pressure for change. Foreign assistance. Wealthier nations can use financial aid as leverage, suspending funds for countries that consistently violate human rights. Section 13. Right to bail. Most individuals are entitled to bail before conviction, allowing them to remain free while awaiting trial. This right cannot be denied unless the crime is punishable by life imprisonment, reclusion perpetua, and there is strong evidence of guilt. Even during times of emergency, when the writ of habeas corpus is suspended, the right to bail cannot be impaired. Section 14. Due process and rights of the accused. This section guarantees the following rights. Presumption of innocence. Individuals are considered innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Right to be heard. Accused individuals have the right to present their defense and be represented by a lawyer. Right to a speedy, impartial, and public trial. Trials should be conducted promptly, fairly, and openly. Right to confront witnesses. Accused individuals can face and question the witnesses against them. Right to compulsory process. They can request the court to compel the attendance of witnesses and the production of evidence in their favor. Section 15. Writ of habeas corpus. This writ allows individuals to challenge the legality of their detention. It can only be suspended in cases of invasion or rebellion when public safety requires it. Section 16. Right to speedy disposition of cases. Individuals have the right to a prompt resolution of their cases in all judicial, quasi-judicial, or administrative bodies. Section 17. Right against self-incrimination. No one can be forced to testify against themselves. This means you cannot be compelled to make statements that might incriminate you. Section 18. Prohibition of political detention and involuntary servitude. This section prohibits the detention of individuals solely based on their political beliefs. It also prohibits any form of forced labor except as punishment for a crime. These rights have their roots in various historical struggles for justice and fairness. For example, the right to bail dates back to medieval England, where it was seen as a way to prevent arbitrary detention. The right to due process has origins in Magna Carta, a landmark document that limited the power of the monarchy and protected individual liberties. Remember, these rights are essential safeguards for everyone, regardless of their background or alleged offense. As military personnel, upholding these rights demonstrates respect for the law and the dignity of all individuals. Economic sanctions. Countries can impose economic restrictions on those violating human rights, like the United States threatening to withdraw China's most favored nation status over such abuses. Action by international organizations, the United Nations (UN), or regional bodies, like the Organization of American States (OAS), can exert political and economic pressure. The UN has formal procedures for investigating and acting on human rights violations, with the authority to impose sanctions if necessary. The importance of international cooperation. The fight for human rights is a global endeavor. It requires cooperation between nations, international organizations, and civil society. By combining different approaches, the international community can more effectively pressure governments to uphold human rights standards and protect the dignity of all people. Protecting the rights of the accused during investigation. The Philippine Constitution. In the Philippines, the 1987 Constitution upholds the rights of individuals under investigation, ensuring fairness and protecting them from abuse. Let's delve into these rights. Right to remain silent. Sec. 12.2. This is a fundamental right allowing individuals to refuse to answer questions that could incriminate them. Think of it as a shield against self-incrimination. Right to counsel. Sec. 12.1. Anyone under investigation has the right to a lawyer. This legal counsel provides guidance and ensures that the investigation is conducted fairly. Even if you can't afford a lawyer, one will be provided for you. Right against torture. Sec. 12.2. No one should be subjected to torture, force, violence, threats, or intimidation during an investigation. This prohibition aligns with international humanitarian law and ethical standards. Right against secret detention. Sec. 12.2. Secret detention is strictly forbidden. Any detention must be legal, transparent, and documented. This prevents individuals from disappearing without a trace. Additional protection. Sec. 11 and 12. Access to courts and legal assistance. Everyone, regardless of financial status, has the right to seek justice through the courts and to receive legal aid if needed. Inadmissibility of forced confessions. Any confession obtained through coercion or violation of rights is invalid and cannot be used as evidence. Penalties for violations. Laws exist to punish those who violate these rights and to compensate victims. These rights are not just abstract concepts. They are the result of centuries of legal and social development, reflecting the growing importance of protecting individuals from abuse of power. For example, the right against torture is enshrined in international law, reflecting a global consensus that torture is never justified. These constitutional rights are vital in upholding the rule of law and ensuring justice in the Philippines. They protect the accused, promote fairness, and prevent abuses of power, regardless of the nature of the alleged crime. Protection against inhumane punishment and other rights in the Philippine Constitution. The Philippine Constitution not only protects the accused during investigation, but also ensures fair treatment and upholds certain fundamental rights even after conviction. Section 19. Prohibition of excessive fines and cruel punishment. This section safeguards individuals from excessive fines and cruel, degrading, or inhumane punishment. It also abolishes the death penalty, except for heinous crimes that Congress may define in the future. Any existing death sentences are automatically reduced to life imprisonment reclusion perpetua. This reflects a global trend towards abolishing the death penalty, with many countries recognizing it as a violation of human rights. Section 20. No imprisonment for debt. In the past, people could be imprisoned for failing to pay debts. This section prohibits such practice, recognizing that financial hardship should not lead to loss of liberty. Section 21. Double jeopardy. This principle prevents someone from being prosecuted twice for the same offense. It ensures that once a person is acquitted or convicted of a crime, they cannot be put on trial again for the same act, even if new evidence emerges. Section 22. Prohibition of ex post facto laws and bills of attainder. An ex post facto law is one that retroactively changes the legal consequences of actions committed before the law was enacted. A bill of attainder is a law that declares a person guilty of a crime without a trial. Both are prohibited by the Constitution to protect individuals from arbitrary punishment. These provisions reflect a long history of legal and ethical development. In many ancient societies, punishments were often harsh and arbitrary. The Enlightenment brought about a greater emphasis on individual rights and the rule of law, leading to the development of modern legal systems that prioritize fairness and proportionality in punishment. These constitutional protections are essential in upholding human rights and ensuring a just legal system in the Philippines. They reflect the country's commitment to international human rights standards and contribute to a society that values the dignity and rights of all individuals, even those who have been convicted of crimes. Rights of the accused at trial. A fair fight. When an accused individual faces trial, the Philippine legal system, like many around the world, provides a set of rights to ensure a fair and just process. Let's explore these rights, outlined in the rules of court. A presumption of innocence. This cornerstone principle means that the accused is considered innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. The burden of proof rests with the prosecution, not the accused. This is similar to how in medieval European trials, an accused person was often given the benefit of the doubt until strong evidence emerged. The informed of the accusation. Ficus must be clearly informed of the specific charges against them. This is essential for them to understand the case and prepare a defense. See right to be present and represented. Ficus has the right to be present at every stage of the trial, from the initial reading of charges arraignment to the announcement of the verdict. They can also have a lawyer represent them throughout the process. This reflects the principle that everyone deserves a chance to defend themselves, a right that was often denied in historical trials where the accused might be left to their own devices. The right to testify or remain silent. Ficus can choose to testify in their own defense, but they cannot be forced to do so. Their silence cannot be used against them, ensuring that the burden of proof remains with the prosecution. This is a departure from historical practices where silence might be interpreted as guilt. A right against self-incrimination. This right prevents the accused from being forced to provide evidence that could incriminate them. It's a safeguard against coerced confessions or forced testimony, which were common in the past. Right to confront witnesses. Ficus can face and question the witnesses to testify against them. This allows for cross-examination, a crucial tool for challenging the credibility of witnesses and uncovering inconsistencies in their statements. Right to compulsory press. Ficus can request the court to compel the attendance of witnesses and the production of evidence that could help their case. This ensures that the defense has access to the same resources as the prosecution. Our right to a speedy, impartial, and public trial. This right ensures that justice is not delayed or denied. A speedy trial prevents the accused from languishing in uncertainty, while impartiality ensures that the judge and jury are not biased. A public trial allows for transparency and accountability. Right to. If the accused is convicted, they have the right to appeal the decision to a higher court. This provides a mechanism for correcting errors and ensuring justice is served. These rights are the bedrock of a fair trial, ensuring that every individual accused of a crime has a chance to defend themselves and that justice is served. Human rights violations under CHR jurisdiction. A focus on specific cases. The Commission on Human Rights CHR in the Philippines has a specific mandate to investigate certain types of human rights violations. These are outlined in CHR Resolution No. A 96/005, which aims to protect individuals from various abuses. Rights of prisoners or detainees. The CHR investigates cases involving physical, psychological, or degrading punishment of prisoners or detainees. This is crucial in maintaining humane conditions in detention facilities. Prohibition of torture and coercion. Any use of torture, force, violence, threat, or intimidation to abstract confessions or information is a grave violation that the CHR investigates. This aligns with international standards against torture. Right to a fair and public trial. The CHR ensures that everyone has the right to a fair and open trial, as guaranteed by the Constitution and laws. This includes the right to legal representation and a transparent judicial process, right to life and prohibition of extrajudicial killings. The CHR investigates cases involving the unlawful taking of life, such as summary or extrajudicial executions. These investigations are crucial for holding perpetrators accountable and preventing future abuses. Liberty of abode and protection against forced evictions. The CHR protects the right to choose one's residence and investigates cases of forced evictions or legal demolitions. This is particularly relevant in areas with land disputes or development projects. Right against unreasonable searches and seizures. The CHR ensures that searches and seizures are conducted lawfully and with proper warrants. This protects individuals from arbitrary intrusions into their homes and privacy. Rights of arrested and detained persons. The CHR monitors the treatment of arrested and detained individuals, ensuring that their rights are respected during custodial investigations. This includes the right to be informed of charges, the right to remain silent, and the right to counsel. Right to peaceful assembly and redress of grievances. The CHR investigates violations of the right to peaceful protest and the right to seek remedies for grievances. This is crucial in upholding democratic freedoms. Right against involuntary servitude. The CHR protects individuals from forced labor or any form of modern-day slavery. Freedom of religion. The CHR investigates cases of religious discrimination and offenses against religious practices, including desecration of places of worship. This upholds the constitutional guarantee of religious freedom. These specific areas of investigation reflect the CHR's focus on protecting the most vulnerable members of society, including prisoners, detainees, victims of violence, and marginalized groups. The CHR's work is essential in upholding human rights and ensuring justice in the Philippines. Safeguarding human rights during combat operations. In the heat of battle, upholding human rights remains paramount. Here's a practical guide to ensure ethical conduct and protect civilians during military operations. Establish clear authority. Ensure every operation has a valid operational order or documented authorization from higher headquarters. This prevents confusion and provides legal justification for your actions. Respect human rights. Remind your troops of their obligation to respect the rights of both civilians and enemy combatants. This is not a sign of weakness, but a testament to professionalism and discipline. Maintain operational security. Brief soldiers on a need-to-know basis, minimizing loose talk that could compromise security or endanger civilians. Respect civilian homes. Avoid eating or sleeping in civilian homes unless absolutely necessary. This prevents misunderstandings and potential accusations of trespassing or harassment. Treat civilians with respect. Interact with civilians in a friendly and casual manner. Avoid aggressive questioning or intimidation. Remember, they are not suspects but potential allies. Bring your own provisions. While purchasing supplies from civilians might seem convenient, it's best to bring your own provisions. This prevents misunderstandings and accusations of looting or theft. Engage with children. Counter negative stereotypes by offering small gifts like candy or chocolates to children. They can be valuable sources of information and help build trust within the community. Avoid alcohol during patrols. Drinking alcohol during patrols can impair judgment and lead to misconduct. Maintain professionalism and avoid any actions that might harm civilians or damage the military's reputation. Use official guides. If you need guidance, seek help from local officials or community leaders. Avoid using civilians, especially women, children, or the elderly, as guides to prevent them from being caught in the crossfire. Allow peaceful assembly. Do not disrupt or interfere with peaceful gatherings or protests. Respect the right of people to express their grievances and assemble peacefully. Minimize property damage. Avoid unnecessary destruction of crops or property. If damage is unavoidable, offer compensation or repair it after the operation. This demonstrates respect for civilian livelihoods and property rights. Allow access to essential services. Do not obstruct the delivery of food, medicine, or educational services to civilians, even in conflict zones. These services are essential for their survival and well-being. Protect civilian livelihoods. Minimize disruption to the economic activities of civilians. Avoid involving areas populated by civilians in military operations whenever possible. Protecting human rights during engagements. During combat, upholding human rights is as crucial as achieving military objectives. Here's a practical guide to navigate the complexities of armed conflict while respecting human rights. 1. Distinguish civilian objects from military objectives. Use common sense, good judgment, and your conscience to determine legitimate targets. Civilian objects like homes, schools, and hospitals should never be targeted. 2. Avoid overkill. Excessive force not only wastes ammunition but can also lead to unnecessary casualties and potential human rights violations. Use proportionate force to neutralize the threat. 3. Control your emotions. Combat can be intense, but emotional outbursts can cloud judgment and lead to unnecessary harm. Maintain discipline and focus on the mission at hand. 4. Respect surrendering combatants. Once enemy combatants surrender, they are no longer legitimate targets. They must be treated humanely and in accordance with international humanitarian law. 5. Document everything. Thoroughly document every engagement with photos, written statements, or video footage. This can serve as evidence to protect you from false accusations and demonstrate adherence to human rights principles. 6. Double-check your targets. Exercise caution before firing. Ensure your target is a legitimate military objective and not a civilian or friendly force. Mistakes can have devastating consequences. Throughout history, there have been countless examples of the importance of upholding human rights during war. For instance, the Geneva Conventions, established in the aftermath of World War II, provide a framework for protecting civilians and prisoners of war. Violations of these conventions have resulted in war crimes trials and international condemnation. By adhering to these guidelines, you not only protect human rights, but also enhance the professionalism and ethical conduct of the armed forces. Remember, winning the hearts and minds of the people is as important as winning the battle itself. Post-engagement best practices, upholding rights and maintaining transparency. The period after a military engagement is crucial for demonstrating respect for human rights and maintaining the trust of the community. Here are some essential guidelines to follow. 1. Allow evacuees to return. As soon as the situation permits, allow displaced civilians to return to their homes. Prolonged displacement can cause hardship and resentment. 2. Preserve evidence. Collect and preserve all relevant evidence, such as spent ammunition, captured documents, and photographs. This can be crucial in defending against potential human rights accusations and establishing the legitimacy of the engagement. 3. 1 firearm per casualty. While not a strict rule, this principle can help establish the legitimacy of an encounter. It suggests a genuine exchange of fire rather than a one-sided attack. 4. Report wounded personnel. Always report any injuries among your troops, even minor ones. This helps dispel doubts about the authenticity of an engagement, especially when the enemy suffers heavier casualties. 5. Avoid property damage. Do not burn or destroy civilian property, even in the heat of battle. This includes using incendiary weapons that could ignite flammable materials used in traditional homes. 6. Engage with the media. Respond promptly and truthfully to media inquiries. Transparency can counter misinformation and prevent negative public opinion. However, exercise caution and avoid disclosing sensitive information. These guidelines are not just legal obligations, but also reflect a commitment to ethical conduct and respect for human life. By following these practices, you demonstrate that the military is not only a force for security, but also a protector of human rights. As we conclude this lesson, it's important to remember that you are not only soldiers, but also guardians of human rights. Your actions, both in combat and in peacetime, shape the perception of the military and the nation you serve. By upholding the principles of human rights, you contribute to a more just and equitable society. The knowledge and understanding gained from this training will guide you in making ethical decisions in challenging situations, ensuring that your service to the country is marked by honor, integrity, and respect for all. Remember, You are the protectors of the Filipino people, and your commitment to human rights is a testament to your dedication to that noble duty.